But she kept saying, I can't believe they're making you sew. What if somebody doesn't have a sewing machine? What if somebody doesn't know like how to sew? Like I don't know how to sew. I'm gonna have to, figure this out. And what about girls that don't even have a mother who even owns a machine for mending? And I'm like, I don't know, Mom. I don't know, Mom.
There's a lot of good questions.
But I just knew I needed to learn to sew and wanted to, and so. And then so I sewed everything from dog clothes to prom dresses to my outfits to things for my siblings. I became the sewer of the family.
It's really cool.
And then as I got into college, I did upholstery for some of the frat guys so that I could get my way through school. I did a boat cover. I did costumes, whatever anybody in college would ask me to do, mending, that kind of thing. And then in early teaching, I became a special education teacher, and in early teaching, I kind of continued the same thing. And I had my children, and I started a wedding gown business, custom design wedding gowns. And then after that, I sort of got into the quilting a little bit. And I liked it because you didn't have to fit anyone.
Yeah, I like that part too. I did it the opposite. I did a bunch of quilting, and then my daughter needed jackets made, so suddenly I had to figure out how to deal with sleeves, which seemed really, really awful.
Yeah, exactly. I think the two things join very nicely. In fact, that's a future venture of mine, is kind of a coming together of sewing and quilting skills, because they're still rather, if I talk to seamstresses, they're very afraid of quilting, and quilters tend to be very afraid of garment making.
Definitely. I think the bag movement, which is so hot right now, and you've got one of the big one of the big kind of patterny kit thing, the interface thing for that everybody does it with, is really kind of that bringing together the quilters and the sewers in some way.
Right.
Right?
Right. If you think about it, you don't actually even technically quilt the bags.
Yeah.
You could.
Yeah.
And in Europe, they refer to it, what we would call the bag, as patchwork. They would not call that quilting. They call the making of the top patchwork. And then the quilting is they definitely define it. Here, we're kind of like, it's all quilting. But that's fine.
Yeah. Well, we haven't made the bag yet. You sent one of the bags, which are really cool, and I'll put a link on our link to it. But once I saw the bag, then it's everywhere. So it's remarkable. Like once you see it, you're like, whoa, there it is. So I would love for you to tell me more about sort of how this business started. What is the business? So in case people don't know, and how did it start?
Well, the business is Quiltsmart Inc. and we print interfacing, basically. We have patterns that go with the interfacing. In the very beginning, we had sorry, I just thought that was a phone. Okay, so in the very beginning, we had pretty much had to explain, how you use, like you did the double wedding ring pattern, and that's one of our oldest patterns. But people were totally not. They didn't get how to use interfacing, and they really didn't get. They thought it was cheating. We got lots of, well, isn't that cheating? Kind of comment.
What do you say to that? Because I wondered. I'm like, am I cheating? But you're not cheating. There's no cheating, right? So what is?
There's lots of great answers to it. Like at a trade show, you often say, "Well, how did you get here to the show? Did you fly? Did you drive? Isn't that cheating? No." Shouldn't you have ridden a horse? Did you put butter on your bread home? Did you churn it? And if your grandmother had a sewing machine and a rotary cutter and a mat and interfacing, would she do it by hand? That kind of. So talk about it more as if it's progress, not cheating.
Yeah.
And generally that will sway people right away. They don't have an issue with that. It's And then I often will tell them too, well, I saw a quilt in the guy's booth with, he sold antique quilts, and he had a double wedding ring in there. It was beautiful. It was very tiny circles. And I was looking at it thinking, gosh, this is so tiny, absolutely gorgeous. And he said, well, what do you do? And I said, oh, you might poo-poo what I do, because I kind of take the classic quilts and make them modern with interfacing. And he said, well, you might be surprised. He said, look really, really closely at that quilt. And it was a quilt from the late 1800s. And I saw that it was actually applique.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that was about the same time that they were doing a lot of with fusible interfacing, because now it was available. I think it started being available in the 50s, maybe late 40s. But people were using it to do a technique called double applique that they've done for probably hundreds of years. I'm guessing, don't quote me on that. But very, very long time ago. I know in the 1800s they were doing it. Well, that would be hundreds of years, wouldn't it? So they, but where they're putting what you did with the interfacing, only they would put it against muslin, and they split the muslin, turn it right side out. Or instead of using the fast turn, like to pull out the double wedding ring tubes, they'd use a safety pin.
Oh, that's actually, I was too impatient and I didn't have one of those. So it suddenly came back to me that somebody taught me how to do this. It was super weird because I can't, and I knew it was put the safety pin on a piece of yarn and turn it. And I thought, okay, Granny or Mom must have taught me this, but I don't know why I know how to do this, which was super weird.
And they did it with a piece of yarn. That's very cool. And I personally have never seen it done that way, but that is very cool.
Really? Well, you got to do something in the middle of the night.
There's this was an age-old technique with this muslin, and basically the interfacing replaced it nicely because it was cheaper, lighter weight, and you could fuse it when the fusible interfacing came out, and so that was a nice segue. And then when you think about tracing your shapes, like a lot of people were doing that on the interfacing hearts and different shapes, sunbonnet and Sue. That was one of the first ones that I did for another company. As a project for them, I mean. But then you start thinking, well, if you can draw a circle or a heart, then you can draw any shape. And then that kind of opened up the whole curved piecing thing. You know, Drunkard's Path is quarter circles, double wedding ring is arcs. Different flowers, Ohio Rose, are more complicated, but they still can be traced. Mm-hmm. And once you think, oh, they can be traced, then you think, well, can we print them? Because if we can print them, we can not have the step of tracing. So that was kind of the how things got going. And then once that, it was just adding more and more patterns and trying to perfect using this technique to make quilting easier, because it just seemed like so many people, including myself, were afraid of making a double wedding quilt because we were just going to get frustrated. So
yeah, there's no way I would have done that. I mean, that I was thinking to myself, like, I had all of those thoughts. Am I cheating? Is it going to work? Can I do this? And I would never do a double wedding. I wasn't going to put the effort into a double wedding ring. There's no way. Because it's, I always quilt like at the very, very end of my day. So I don't really want complicated. And I don't want to feel like I'm failing, because like I have other places I can fail in my daily existence. Like, did I get everything done that I'm supposed to do? So it was really kind of amazing. It was a really interesting experience and kind of shifted my thinking about sort of what quilting is. Quilting can be lots of things, but I thought this was a really interesting process. Now, when did you start the company?
1994, kind of. It was a little bit of I wrote a book first with ASN, who is no longer publishing, but I guess that kind of kicked off the business. And I originally had someone else that did the screen printing. And when he, and that was not easy to find. I went through 99 screen printers before I had one that would
really
look, because they were using chemicals back then, and they were having trouble. Like you'd set up a screen, and it would be expensive to make the screen. And the printing, they couldn't. They had drying issues and things like that. So, anyways, he thought it was really interesting, and he said, "I'll work with you on it." And then when he retired, just a couple of years after we started working on that, he said, "Well, I'll teach you how to do this," and that's what he did.
Really?
So, and then we started printing it ourselves. Started at a kitchen table. And then a garage. And right now we have 2 machines that are automated in a big warehouse.
Wow.
So,
that's amazing. That's really amazing. How many kits, I mean, tell me how the business has grown. I'm trying to understand sort of the economic side and sort of the growth of the business. So.
Well, it hit in the very beginning when it was still out of my house. You know, I would make a bolt of interfacing, 50 panels, and maybe print 6 books off my little printer, and I'd ship them to the shop that ordered it, and that would basically take care of 6 double wedding ring customers, say, of a smaller, like about the size you make, and that would take me all day to do that.
Yeah.
And now, let's see. I mean, we ship to distributors, you know, tens of thousands of dollars of orders for shops. We still consider the shop our main customer.
Interesting.
And we can interface with them nicely, give them, you know, our product is not without need of education.
Yeah, that's true.
And you can't someone won't walk into a shop and see this interfacing sitting there on a bowl and say, "Oh, it says double wedding ring. Great. I'll buy 10 panels and go home and make a double wedding ring quilt." It's not going to work. So we have to have the, you know, updated instructions, and we've started having videos online. We're adding about 3 videos a month to our website.
That's great.
And also the double wedding ring, the one that you did, is an applique technique, and we have another one that our Lone Star is a different technique. We call it clip and stick.
Right, I have this one. You sent me the Lone Star. I haven't started it yet.
Yeah. But that's a completely different technique, but still using interfacing basically as your base or foundation, if you will, to get perfect points. And it's great. It's a great product, and it's because of that, because it makes it easier. The business has grown to where now we are shipping quite a bit to shops really all over the world. We sell to a distributor in Australia, throughout the United States. We have customers in Germany, Mexico, all over. And shops, you know, throughout the United States. So a lot of them are buying from the distributors, which is great too. Well, one thing I like, actually, I don't want to poo-poo my distributors, but I do like the customers direct, because I feel like you can do more education with them, and that they get your product a little better when you're working directly with them.
It's really interesting. Do you see, so in terms of, so obviously you've grown, so how big a staff do you have now in terms of the packaging and the printing and all of the sort of, how does it work? How does a business work on that side of it?
Well, we have my husband. I'm the president. I do the graphics and the website, which are 2 things, and the design of the product. The first 2 things I mentioned are something that if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have said absolutely no way.
Yeah.
I don't do. but because we've moved a couple times and people